If you're on YouTube right now, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes. And drop a like and a comment. Thank you. All right, so Miss Pamela Stephens, thanks for coming in today. I'm really excited about this one. Occasionally, Alex will put out there, or sometimes I will, mostly it's Alex, will put out just kind of suggestions for people for us to have on the podcast. When we originally set this up, we're looking for just cool people in our community and cool things in our community just to be able to talk about and highlight how great Northeast Louisiana is. At least I feel like it is. I think you feel the same way.
Yep.
And we asked for suggestions, and obviously we can't put everybody on that gets suggested, or it may not always be the right fit. But your colleague, Mr. Shane, put your name forward, and I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. And I'm like, this is going to be good. So I decided to reach out to you. So I want to acknowledge right off the bat that this is, I've had a few podcasts, and these have never really been about real estate. And you're the first real estate agent. And excuse me, I don't know that I would call you a competitor. But in sales, we're always competing for business. So in that aspect, I would call you a competitor, but I consider you more of a colleague than anything, a great business professional. If I had to lose business to you, would I be disappointed? Absolutely. But would I be mad? Not one bit, because I know that somebody's getting a quality agent to be able to represent them. So thanks for coming today.
Thanks for that. I'm excited to be here. I've done a lot of, I've done TV interviews and radio and print, and this is my first podcast. So I'm excited.
We're going to be easy today. So when you think you know somebody kind of being around for years, you really don't know everything. People tend to show you what they want you to see. So in preparation for this, we sent out a questionnaire, and I asked you to kind of fill some stuff out. Give me just a little bit of background where the conversation wanted to go. And I always knew that there was some depth to Pamela. But I had no idea how much depth there really is. And so I'm really excited about kind of digging into some of that today. And my takeaway that I want people to walk away from today is I want them to at least see the side of you that I see. And that is a confident, compassionate businesswoman who loves her community. So that's what I'd like to try to focus on today. Now, if there's scary stuff in your closet, we're not going to dig any of that stuff out. So we'll kind of keep that where it's at. But that's really what I want to see people take away from today. So looking at some of your background, I'm just like, dang, how did you turn out like this? Kind of going for that. So why don't we start off with, tell us, were you born and raised here? Did you grow up here in Northeast Louisiana?
I did. I grew up in Union Parish and lived in the same house my whole life until I graduated, and I moved to Monroe to go to college, go Warhawks, and I've been here, Monroe, West Monroe, ever since.
So growing up in Union Parish, not moving around, describe what childhood was like for you. Did you have a lot of siblings? Did you have a lot of close cousins that you got to spend time with? What did childhood look like for you?
So yes and no, to answer your question. I grew up in a super small town, right? So my graduating class, I think, was 26 people, and that was one of the larger ones. And so small town life is just different. You know, my neighbors were my cousins. Everybody's kind of related. I do have 3 older siblings, but my mom was 41 when I was born. I was an accident, to say the least. And so my siblings were all much older than me. It wasn't a traditional sibling relationship. You know, in a lot of cases, I had extra sets of parents more so than true siblings. And that's really still the case now a little bit. I mean, now that I'm older, our relationships are different, but especially as a kid, you know, one of my sisters specifically carried me everywhere with her, bought a lot of my Christmas presents. You know, it just was a different type of relationship.
So growing up in a small town, how does, and I know we're going to get into the entrepreneurial aspect. I mean, because it's, you know, when I think of entrepreneur, I mean, you're one of the names that comes up. I mean, there's so much that you've done, and I'm not going to ask you your age, but you're still a very young lady. But there's a
Not
lot
that
that
young.
well, you're pretty young, but there's a lot that you've accomplished. So growing up in a small town and having those type of entrepreneur desires, when did that start developing?
Much later. Now, I say that. I opened my first business at 23 and I've been self-employed ever since, right? So there's got to be some element of like being born with this that exists just because I started so soon. Um I think really what it boils down to though in a nutshell, I didn't learn entrepreneurship as a kid. My family, like, you didn't talk about money, right? Like, I didn't even really know the basics of how money works until I was much, much older. Same thing with in school. That's not something that's really taught in a lot of small school environments. However, I think what I did have to learn at a very, very young age was like how to make things happen, how to make something out of nothing, how to survive without being dramatic, and I think that that just led into entrepreneurship for
So do,
me.
do you have any examples of that when you were growing up? So like maybe when you were a teen, did you work while going to school?
I could not, so before we started this, I told you that I was going, that I could talk about anything, and here we are. We might dive into some stuff that might get you some emotion in this conversation. So, um, I was not allowed to like work as a teen because my dad passed away at a young age, and my mom received like VA benefits and Social Security benefits from him to raise me.
Okay.
If I worked,
That would affect those
that would
benefits.
affect the amount of money she, brought in for our household. So therefore, again, with the figuring it out, I would babysit, I would do filing for, my, companies of people who were near us or, odds and end type things just to make a little money to, have as a teen. Um, back to the figuring it out. Like, whereas my friends could have went and got a job at the local Sonic, I didn't have the ability to do
Right.
that. So
So graduated small class. You go off to ULM. What was your major?
interestingly enough, I started in pre-pharmacy. Now, being that you know me, you can see immediately that that is not the career path that I should have taken. And that's what landed me at ULM was thinking I was going to go to pharmacy school. I was valedictorian in my class. I needed to do something important with my life, and pharmacy was the quickest way to do like a good job. And so that's what I started. I changed my major the first 3 weeks of school. I knew that is not where I needed to be.
What would you say to that young adult or that kid that's trying to plan for college? Because it sounds to me like you were trying to find a good paying job, not trying to match what your skill sets or where your mental capacity or where your desires wanted to be. What kind of advice would you give a young lady now that's trying to figure something out like that?
I think one of the biggest things is to pay attention to what you're interested in. I nowadays we do a little bit better job of communicating to, kids what all is out there. But especially whenever I was younger, you knew the basics. Like you could be a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, I just had no idea of what all jobs were out there. And so when I talk to, young adults trying to make decisions nowadays, I'm like, what excites you? What is fascinating? What interests you? What, do you think you would be energized by rather than depleted by? And then explore that a little bit because there's nuances to every type of possible interest, and it doesn't have to be just the regular jobs you hear about every day. There's a ton of stuff that you could do. You just have to, know kind of what interests you.
What interested you back in those days?
Gosh, anything. So, whenever I changed my major, well, first of all, I'll say this. I think in my next life, I'm going to be a high school English teacher. Um, if I was making my decisions back then, not considering money,
Yeah.
that's probably what I would have done. I still love to write. I've kind of put some of that on the back burner right now, but um, I wasn't interested in anything related to pharmacy. And um, when I changed my major, the beginning of my freshman semester of college, I changed it to mass communications with a concentration in public relations. I loved being in front of people. I loved that advertising, marketing, communication, all of that. I was going to do political campaigning. That's where I thought I was headed.
Then how did reality mix in with that after you graduated?
I was very fortunate to get a job as an intern at the Convention and Visitors Bureau while I was still in college. And that job introduced me to so many people and to so much actually about our community. That's where my
Mm.
love of this community began. So when I graduated, they created a full-time position for me in marketing there. And so I rolled straight into that out of college instead of political campaigning.
I don't want this to be you know, an ad for Discover Monroe, West Monroe, but I'll tell you that organization, people have no idea how much they do for our community.
Absolutely.
Bringing people in, it was only within the past, I would say, 5 years did I truly understand what they actually do for our community. I always thought it was a place you go pick up brochures and it's just this building on the side of the road there. But that team does so the millions of dollars they help bring into our community just kind of blows my mind. Something that I picked up on when you were talking about your time in college, and that throughout that time just so much loss that happened in your life during that time. How did that direct your path? I mean, I know a lot of people and we all handle adversity different. And I know that during different stages of our life, we can handle things differently. But most people, when I start looking at the adversity that you've kind of had thrown on your plate, most people just curl up in the fetal position and just want to cry about it. And I'm not saying you've never done something like that before, but how were you able to push through for all that personal loss?
Well, I think that the first thing, part of who I am is I take care of other people. And so when I first began kind of this journey of loss that I told you about, I went into caretaker mode. I mean, I was very young, right? Like my dad passed away when I was 11, and he was sick before that. I was 10. I learned to take care of people, and so a lot of times what I do during hard times is I kind of put my own feelings to the side and I take care of everybody else, and then I sort through my own feelings years later. Or in the case of like my teenage years and everything I went through, I mean, I saved dealing with that for over a decade until I, got some professional help to say, okay, you didn't make it, you did make it through, but you didn't handle any of this, let's kind of sort through that. So lots of therapy.
The day that I called you to ask you to be on this, I think I'm going to paraphrase here that that was the day that you told yourself you're not taking any calls, you're taking care of yourself, but yet you still took my call that day. So
Sometimes taking care of myself means I get to stay home and not wash my hair, not put on makeup, and stay in my pajamas. I can still do, my job and do tasks, but I just really don't want to wash my hair sometimes. And so that was the day that you called. I was like, I will not leave this house under any circumstances, but I did take a few important phone calls.
Importing phone calls, putting me in that category, it makes me feel really good. So we're up to the point now to where you're working for Discover Monroe, West Monroe.
Mhm.
I'm assuming it was called something similar to that when you started. How long was it that you were an intern versus going full time? Then how long did you actually work for them before you started your first business?
I was there several years. I don't remember the time frame at this point of internship versus full time, but I was there. So working there introduced me to this community, right? Like on a deeper level than just I know, there's a Chili's to go to. So while working there, specifically, one of the things that I did there was we launched the Christmas on the River Festival for the first time in our downtown communities, and that showed me Antique Alley,
Mhm.
the shops there, the people there, and of course, as you would, I fell in love with them. And so while I was working there, I opened my first store on Antique Alley, and I did both for a little while. And then the store luckily did so well that I ended up moving over to the store full time. Um, but I was there at the CBB for several years and loved those people and loved my time there.
So you're not too far outside of college. You got your first, quote unquote, real job,
Mm-hmm.
big girl job,
Yep.
and you decide that you're going to open up a retail business.
In a recession, Brian.
And retail, I think, has probably similar track record to restaurants when it comes to the failure rate of a new business like that. Is greater than I think it's greater than 50%. I
Mhm.
don't have the stat here. It's me pulling a stat out of thin air, but I
Sure.
believe
It's a lot. It's
it's
high.
a lot. You're in your early 20s. I would assume that you didn't have just stacks of cash laying around, and you say, "I'm going to do this." I mean, how did you even start? I mean, what was that process like to you?
I think one of the pros to starting a business at 23 is you're not as scared of failure as you
Mm,
are a little bit older. I didn't have as much on the line.
right.
I didn't have a family. Nobody was dependent on me but me. So I could do it. Um, I think one thing about me is I'm stubborn enough to make most things happen. If I set my mind to something, I will figure it out. I'm a problem solver by nature, whether it's my problems or someone else's. And so I had the idea, I wanted to do it. And as I mentioned, my siblings were a lot older than me. My sister was in full-time corporate world, and I'm like, "Hey, do you wanna do this with me? You do, like, the numbers and the books and the stuff that I have no interest in, and I'll find some cool stuff, and we're gonna sell it to some people." And so we did, and no, I didn't have stacks of cash. I don't even know how we put, like, the deposit down on the building that I rented, to be honest. I guess I came up with it from somewhere, but my mom let me use her credit card, and I put all of my initial inventory on her credit card and paid it off, and that's how I started a business.
How long did and what? Just explain to people what that business was.
So, again, 23, opened a business. It was named Salt and Pepper. It was a boutique. And I hesitate to use that word because I feel like there's a stigma there that I
Hmm.
don't align with. And yet, it was a store where you could buy, women's. I started it just as accessories. So it was jewelry, purses, scarves, that sort of thing. We later added shoes, we later added clothes, and then I added a vintage component where we had like vintage furniture and home goods and stuff like that. And I think that as I mentioned, I don't like the stigma with boutique. I think that a lot of times, small shops get a reputation for treating people differently or for not being kind. And I had very clear rules inside my store about how people were to be communicated with. So we treated everybody the same. Um, and that really mattered to people. It was a local boutique. They could come in and buy something for themselves or buy a gift and not be judged, I guess. I'm not saying that very eloquently, but it's
No, I
the
get it.
truth,
I get it. So it's not like you're going into some hoity-toity place around town
Right. I'm
that
not a
people
hoity-toity person.
and and I know you're not, but you offered something that, from what I understand, I never went into the shop. Something that was very nice, a nice environment for people to go to get things that you just can't go to the department store and be able to pick up.
Right, because that was the other thing that set us apart was I worked really hard to find things that were different. I didn't want the same brands or the same styles or the same items you could get in any shop in
Right.
town. My style is different. I don't want, what everybody has once it's mainstream. I'm not interested in it anymore. And so I spent a lot of time finding stuff that was different, but that was also affordable. You could get something that fit nearly any budget. And because we did that, because we were nice to people and we focused on finding things that were different and affordable. We did so well right out of the gate, and I'm so proud of that first business. I sold it whenever I got my real estate license.
So how long from when you started to you actually sold the business?
I think about 5 years,
So 5
give or
years.
take.
In that 5 years, give us kind of just a 10,000-foot view of, my first year, we were you don't have to give dollar amounts, but, we handled just a few things here to where when I sold it, this is what we were involved in.
Sure,
Because there was some from what I understand, there was some big growth
there
in
was.
that 5
There
years.
was, and again, I'm so proud of it. So for our first year, as with anything, you're just trying to pay the light bill. We're trying to figure out what people will buy, what sells, what doesn't sells, where to get the best inventory from. And so, it was just kind of a hustle for the first year to figure it out. And then once people started coming in and saw what we had to offer and, liked us as people, we did grow substantially. We grew to something that I could sell, right? Rather than close up. And so, also, looking back, if I knew now, knew then what I know now, I probably would have never sold that business. But at 20 something years
Yeah,
old, I've got this idea that like you got to go this path or this path.
sure.
And the real estate path opened itself up to me. And so I'm like, okay, if I'm going to go that way, then I got to do something with this. And now I know I could do both, but I didn't know that at the time.
So, when you at what point did you get married? So,
So you mean the first time?
yeah, we mean the first time.
I got married at 26, and it's about the same time that I sold the business. So,
So you were doing all of
mm,
this. This was Pamela. Pamela and her sister was doing this. You didn't have anybody backing you behind the scenes. You didn't have anybody
I
that's
wish.
that's that was championing you, that was just kind of pushing you along and say, "You got this, go." This was all Pamela.
Yeah, I don't believe there's like a self-made person, right? Like we all have help. I did not have financial backing. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon or a trust
Yeah,
fund,
but that help.
unfortunately.
But the help that I'm talking about is that when you have a spouse that is equally yoked with you and you guys are all pushing the same direction, it is so much more, at least for me, it is so much more comforting knowing that I have the support, even though I may have to do it all on my own. It's just like that extra shot of adrenaline, knowing that I've
Oh
got
yeah,
somebody behind me making
I
that
know.
happen. And when you don't have that, it's once you have it, you know what that feeling is. I guess if you don't have it, you don't know what you're missing. But that having it is huge.
Right.
That person behind you to kind of push you, and just to know that you did this at such a young age. And I know that there's other people that can influence things, but doing it at such a young age and you not having that
No,
rock
like I
behind you.
just would come home at the end of the day and like look over, business plans and like think about what I could do better and how I could grow. And like I'm just mulling it all over in my own head. Or talk with my sister, who was my business partner at the time, obviously. But yeah, no. So I met my first husband while I had the store. Actually, there was kind of a slight connection with the store. He helped me kind of solve some problems and went from there. And actually, we can get into this. I suppose no one will mind. Um, the we got married very quickly, and when I first met him, he was so supportive and encouraging and helpful and like championed me. I'd never really experienced that before, and I just fell in love with that. Like it was so empowering that someone like cared
Mhm.
and was so supportive. And like if I had a crazy idea, he would be like, yeah, we can do that, do this way. And it was intoxicating, honestly. And he was a good, kind, helpful person, and we got married very quickly. And I think, of course, again, hindsight's 2020. We shouldn't have gotten married. But I was just so thrilled to have somebody in my corner
Yeah.
that it just all moved very quickly.
So when did real estate come into the equation? As far, and when I say real estate sales, because I'm assuming your other real estate adventures happened after you got your real estate license.
Correct. I became a realtor before I ever even bought my own first house.
So how'd that come about? I mean,
You
why did you
know,
even start thinking about it?
I honestly don't know. Probably the same way that everybody else does. Like, oh, I like to look at houses. um, growing up, my mom was always like decorating our house, or rearranging our house. And by rearranging, I mean taking down walls. Like I would go to school one day, come home, and there's a wall missing, or there's a new wall up, or, we've ripped out the sheetrock over here. I mean, it was a little chaotic, but, she just had this real good eye for things. And I think some of that kind of led me into real estate too. And, I'd watched HGTV, and I'm like, I can do that. And so I just, on a whim, kind of decided to get my real estate license. I was doing that while having the store. So, like, on my days off, I would, study and do my real estate work. And then I was finishing up. I had just passed my test to get my real estate license, and the opportunity to sell the store kind of came up. And so I was newly married. My mom had just been diagnosed with colon cancer, had moved in with me and my new husband for treatments, and I was I was her sole caretaker at that time. And I was like, yeah, sure. Retail's hard. I'll sell it, and I'm going to do this instead.
So coming from retail, getting into real estate, how hard was it for you to get started in real estate?
My instinct was to say it was not hard, and I don't want those words to be taken out of context. Like, it's hard, right? It's hard work. However, I sold my store at the end of May. My real estate license became active on June 13th. I didn't have a choice but to make it. A lot of people get into real estate and, they have another job or they have another provider in their family. At this time, my husband was going back to school. He
Yeah.
was hardly working. Like, it was up to me to make some money. And so when I got my real estate license, I did not have an option to fail. I had to sell some stuff or we were on the street. So I hit the ground running. I mean, I had every conversation I needed to have, and I did what I needed to do. And that thankfully built the business that I'm so grateful to have
And that's
today.
something to be said for when your plan B is plan A tends to work out, right?
Yes.
It's that determination. It's one of the things that concerns me about my kids' generation, which I've got one in middle school, one in grade school. You have similar. The resilience for that generation is not.
They're not like us. They're not like us.
And as hard as I try with my own kids to, try to instill within it, you've got society coming from every single angle, saying, well, it's going to be okay. Well, you know what? It's going to be okay if you make it okay,
Right.
but you're going to have to get out there and work and make it happen. And there's a lot to be said for, as long as your plan B is your plan A, you're going to be A-okay.
Right.
And that's, you alluded to that when you opened the retail shop, that you had no choice but to go forward with it. Quit is not an
I
option.
couldn't call somebody for some money to pay the bills if I didn't have it, And
And
that's still true today.
And I think you'll also agree with this, that although you were off to a good start with real estate because your mind was right, real estate is nothing but a mind game. If you're in real estate sales and haven't figured that out by now, I'm telling you, it's a mind game. If you want to make it happen, you'll figure out a way to make it happen. But also me, giving you feedback within your business, you mastered something, or I think you already had it mastered, and it took me years to figure it out. And frankly, I give John Ray a lot of the credit, the man, not the company, that real estate's a relationship business. And you had that relationship business figured out when you were running your retail store. You knew how ladies, young women wanted to be treated. You knew how they felt when they went into similar type stores, and you wanted something different. You wanted them to feel connected. You wanted them to feel welcome in a place, not like they were at something to make them feel uncomfortable. And that's the relationship that you come with it. So you had that leg up on most people coming in, not trying to take away from the hard work that went in, but this is selling real estate's relationship business. If you're after it just to try to get rich tomorrow off of it, you can only grind so far to where you're going to
Right,
crash and
that's gonna
burn.
come to a stop. Yeah, and I learned that I feel like so much of what I've done in my life has showed me that, and they say, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much
But
you
you care.
care. And so much of my business in the beginning was purely people who like trusted me. Sure, I didn't know the answers to all the questions, but they trusted I would figure it out, or they trusted I was going to protect them even if I had not encountered that before.
Right.
And that's the name of nearly every game that you play. If you take care of people, you'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what everything, all of the different hats that I wear, all of them somehow circle back around to taking care of people in some way. And I've been doing that for ages.
So you have a successful career in real estate. I mean, you really climbed the ladder fast. And when I say the ladder, I mean, we look at numbers, sales volume, and how many transactions people have. You shot up really, really fast. If I'm not mistaken, I think you were Rookie of the Year, Keller Williams. Was that true or not true? If you wasn't, you should have been.
Well, I truly should have been. I hired someone my first year to help me because I was doing so well. And the way that I paid them affected how my volume reported. And so someone else technically won, technicality. But I sold more real estate. But
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, I mean, fantastic out of the gate with your business, and you haven't really slowed down on the goals that you and now your husband are trying to achieve. At some point, now I know that you ended up going through a divorce. I don't know how long into real estate, and
3 years, 4 years.
Then you ended up getting remarried to Zach.
Mm-hmm.
Great man. Didn't know your other husband. I'm sure he's a great man too, but I know Zach. Great man. And Zach was already, I don't know how heavy he was in it, but Zach had already owned some additional real estate. He had some rental properties. At what point did that become on your radar as far as, because you guys have really built something when it comes to rental properties and Airbnbs. When did that first come on your radar that was something that would interest you?
I mean, right out of the gate, right? So when I got into real estate sales, that was my whole job, right? Like helping people buy and sell houses. Well, one way that I think that you do well in anything that you want to do is to surround yourself with people who are doing better than you, people who you aspire to be, people you can learn from, like you are the company that you keep, right? Yeah. And so
Isn't that so true though?
Yes.
That is so true.
And so I made sure that I was around people that I needed to be around, that I was finding my way into rooms with people I could learn from. And so quickly I saw these people own property. And like I said, I mentioned that I got into real estate sales before I even had bought my own first house. So like step one was to buy a house. And so we did that, and then it flooded. And anyway,
was that the 2016 flood?
That was.
Yeah. So you ended up redoing that house, right?
I did.
Now here, my memory's not the best, so it's okay for you to step on what I'm saying and correct me. But when you redid that house, if I'm not mistaken, you chose for our community, one of the most bold colors. And people thought, if they haven't already told you, people thought you were crazy for that. So if you never knew that before, I'm telling you, they thought you were crazy at that point.
Yeah.
I remember you sharing some of the stuff around the office, and I think everybody probably told you, "Oh, that looks great," but secretly people are like, "You're crazy. Nobody should ever do that." But I mean, it turned out to be such a beautiful home after you
Thank
redid
you.
that. Did you understand how bold that was? What color was it again?
Well, I think the thing that got people, well, it was two things. One, I painted the outside brick like this navy, dark blue, and people weren't doing that yet. This is 2016. Again, when other people start doing stuff,
Yeah,
I move away from it. But anyway,
but
um,
that was bold. You have to
it
admit,
was. And like I painted the door like this bright, like almost lime green. I can't
mhm.
remember the color of it now, but I also painted the kitchen cabinets navy. People weren't quite doing that yet. So yeah, everybody was like, she's insane. She's finally crashing. But it turned out so great. And we sold that house once we went through the divorce, and it still looks the same today. I drive by it all the time, and I know the people who have it, and I can see the cabinets in the background on their photos, and
But
it's
those are
so
some of the
great.
things that when I think about you, um, you're not afraid to do some bold stuff.
For better or worse.
I'm sure there's been some fails. There has to have been some
Yeah.
fails, but I mean, these bold moves that you've got an eye for things. And when you did that, you mentioned the flood, and I just went back to that's how that talk about that house. I
Yeah.
mean, that was bold during that time for you to be able to do it. And I'm sure you probably heard some naysayers when you were thinking about those colors. How do you put the naysayers off to the side and you still work your plan?
I think
Because
that,
I think that's big for a lot of people. They listen to the noise
yeah.
instead of following their passion, what they know to be true.
And you cannot, okay? Like, this can lead into a whole nother conversation, Brian. Okay. So, first of all, you have to trust your gut, your intuition. Like, if there's something inside of you that says you should do this thing, you have to trust that more than you do the opinions of other people. Okay. So, talking about that house specifically, two things. I, I wanted it done the way that I wanted it done. I could see it so clearly in my mind, regardless of whether other people thought it was going to look good. I knew I had to try it. But also, part of the intuition that was happening at the same time, to go back to what we were talking about, is I wanted to invest in real estate. I wanted to own rental properties, and I wanted to flip houses. And my husband at the time was not comfortable with real estate in the way that I was. Like, he was a numbers guy, but he would have done any other type of investing before real estate. And I just had to push and push and push and say, you've got to trust me on this. Like, I know I can do this. And so after that flood, I did that house. He saw how it turned out. And then I bought two others that had flooded. And that's kind of what started my investing journey. Like, I bought houses that were ripped down to the studs and then put them back together. Um,
As far as listening to the naysayers, how many times have you see that just paralyze people?
all the time. And that's the second point that I was going to make. Number one, you got to trust your intuition and trust your instinct on things. Number two, what other people say about you is none of your business, honestly. Whether that is like on an idea that you have, something you want to do, a dream you want to trace, or just what you're wearing on a Tuesday. We tend to worry too much about what other people think, and then we don't do the things we want to do. So a long time ago, I heard in a training I was in this concept of like, you know, your 80-year-old self and what they would say to you. What we were doing was like a guided meditation, and you're like closing your eyes, and they're like, you're coming down a path and you meet someone and they look familiar and it's you.
Yeah.
I shorten that. Every time I encounter a decision or an idea or something I want to try or do or whatever, I ask myself, what will my 80-year-old self say to this? What would they tell me? What would she tell me to do today? And that makes things so much clearer for me. Because if I'm not careful, I can get caught up in today. I can get caught up
Yeah.
in how busy I am, how tired I am, what so and so will say, whether they'll like it or they'll not like it or whatever. But when I think about I'm at the end of the road and looking back, that stuff doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I can
And
paint that door green if I want to.
sure. But I'll be willing to bet that you still have a lot of those thoughts and you still have to go through that process, right?
Yes, you
So,
just have to sit it to the side.
but those are normal thoughts that a lot of people will have. But I think the important thing is that those are things that you really want to try to process quickly, or it'll paralyze you and prevent you from doing some really great stuff. If I'm not mistaken, that house sold at top of market, a little above market at that point. I mean, it really it did not floor me after seeing what you did, but seeing the boldness that you took during that time that was so far out there, it really amazed me that, you've got an eye for things. And I applaud your boldness of being able to go and make these decisions,
Thanks.
because it's definitely served you well. But I've been able to sit back and watch some of this stuff happen. And it's one of the reasons that we're talking to you today is that I think that you have a lot to offer younger ladies, or ladies of any age that want to try to do more. I wish that there are risks that I'm not afraid to take a lot of risk, like the average person. But there are some risks I wish I would have taken earlier in life that I chose not to take because I was worried about what other people would think.
Mhm.
But or at least I've reached a point in my life to where that really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter at all. And I've got, a daughter in middle school right now to where it is like so micro
Mhm.
with life about, I mean, girls can be mean.
Yes.
Um, I'm sure boys can be mean too, but girls
The
really can be mean.
yeah.
But, during that time, that stuff you trying to tell someone, it does not matter. Next year that will be forgotten and nobody ever think about it
You don't
again.
see that at that
Yeah,
age,
you don't.
though. Yeah.
But as adults, we still find ourselves in that category of we're so worried about what other people are going to think or say. We're just, yeah, I'm just not going to do that then.
Mhm.
And you're missing so much in life by not taking some
Yeah.
risk.
Because another thing that someone, I don't even know where I heard this from, I couldn't tell you if I tried. Um, Someone somewhere said, if you're on your deathbed, like you're taking your final breaths, right? You're about to say your goodbyes. Who are the 5 people that are going to be in that room? Don't say them out loud. But who are they? They're the only ones whose opinions matter.
Yeah.
If they're not, if you're worried about what someone will think, that would not be one of your final phone calls if you had a chance to make them. They don't matter. They don't. And so that helps perspective wise too. I even on family members of mine a lot of times have like negative things to say about the things that I do or don't do. I mean, God forbid, I was 36 before I had a child. And, you just have to hear it, acknowledge it, and then go on and do what you're going to do. Because we can't make everybody happy.
Oh, it'd be a sad life if you try to sit back and try to make everybody happy. It's
Yeah.
an impossible task.
Mm-hmm.
You and I both have probably, I'm sure you've witnessed this before, investors buying a property and they've got, grand ideas of things they're going to do. And real quickly, they end up in over their heads. Give us some examples of you getting started to where that's happened to you.
I mean, all the time. So I tell people all the time, don't follow in my footsteps. To make better choices than what I make. I just as one example of this specifically, we bought a house in the Garden District. Someone I know brought the deal to me. I was excited about it. I love an old house with character. I could see what the house could be. This house was a hoarder house. We hauled out 5 dumpster loads of stuff before we could even start construction. The floors were caving in, the roof was caving in. I mean, it was only, a year or 2 away from having completely fallen to the ground. So, of course, we built a budget, and we quickly realized that budget, we had to replace the entire foundation. We'd budgeted for like 2, maybe 3 rooms, and we had to put every wall up on a block and rebuild every single thing underneath it. And that's obviously not in the budget, right? So we ended up spending way more money than what we planned to. And that's the risk you make in real estate investing. Ultimately, we ended up with a great property. In the end, will I get my money out of it? I don't know. We ended up, rather than selling it, making it an Airbnb, and it's done really well at that. But I got a lot of money sitting over there in that house.
When that situation like that hits, and you have the realization there was going to be a day that it hit you guys,
Mm-hmm.
and y'all realize that there's no way we're going to hit this budget, and it's going to be way more than what we thought we're going to be in over our heads. How do you process something like that? How do you make the decision to move forward with something like that?
I mean, what's your other option? Just leave it? You know, like, I think that's just like everything else I've encountered in my life. Like, oh gosh, this really sucks. I did not want to be here, and we are. So what are we going to do about it? You know, and some of it is, you know, we cut out things we were going to do so that we could spend that money on the foundation. You know, we keep it rather than selling it because we can't sell it without being upside down in it. You just have to go into problem solving mode. And fortunately, unfortunately, I'm not sure which it is, I've spent a lot of my life in problem solving mode, and I've gotten really good at it. And so you just do what you have to do. You know, sometimes when people learn like the ins and outs of my story, they're like, how have you survived? And I'm like, well, what are my other options? You just do what you have to do. You get back up. You get knocked down, get back up again. You know, I mean, my life is a series of just getting back up, just figuring it out and keep on going.
Well, I've always told myself that as long as everybody wants to make something work, there's always going to be a solution. So if the bank wants me to be successful with it and I'm not being successful right now, if they want me to be successful and I want to be successful, we're going to figure out a way how to push through it and be able to make it happen. And I think that's what I keep hearing over and over from you is that there is no give up. It is the plan B is the plan A.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be able to go through it. There's going to be a solution. It may not be a great solution, but there is a solution.
That's it. Like most of these solutions are not ideal. You know, they're not plan A. It's not best case scenario. It's just a solution that gets us to the other side.
Sometimes you have to pay for some education.
You do. I've paid for a lot of education, actually.
But hopefully you're not making the same mistakes over and over and over.
No. You know, just sometimes things don't go as planned. And like, if I look back, if we're talking about real estate investing specifically, from the beginning to where I am now, I mean, I've remodeled, gosh, 20 something, 30 houses. I don't know. Do I make better decisions now than I did back then? Absolutely. Do I know more about what to look for now? Absolutely. And I tell people this when they're wanting to take a similar path, like, you're not going to avoid the hiccups. You're not going to know on day one everything to look for, but you do have to start somewhere, because while some of the projects or things that I've done over the years haven't gone according to plan, I still would have rather done it than not done it for fear that some of this stuff would have happened. Sure. Like, it's still better to have started it, be where I am, than still at the beginning scared to try.
And I would think that even with all the experience that you have now, it doesn't make it, it makes, I'm sure it makes it easier, but you still have problems that you get faced with. So it's not like you reach a certain point to where no more problems are going to happen in this area, because every property is going to be different.
Right. You never make it. Like in anything that you do, like I had this false idea as a kid that like I was going to make it, like I was going to get to the point where life wasn't hard anymore. That's not, or at least that's not my experience. If someone else has the secret, bring them on and let's learn.
I don't have
but it. I don't think that you do. I don't think that you make it. I don't think that you figure it all out, or that you get the plan or the pathway that's free of pain and stress. And, you know, you make the most with what you have, and you try to do the most you can in the time that we're given. And
you know, I was in the business for 10 years before I stopped referring to myself as a new agent or thinking that I was still a new agent. January would be 20 years, and I still don't have it all figured out.
Right.
I mean, I'm better today than I was when I got started, but
Absolutely.
I'll agree with you. From the point to where you feel like you got it all figured out, I need to sit down and talk to you because I need to know what you know that
Right.
I don't know because I
Something's
don't.
missing,
Something's
probably.
missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So going from the investing in real estate from the flip to the buy and the hold to rental. Were you intermingling some of that in the beginning to where you were just trying to flip homes, or were you flipping homes and buying some rental properties at the same time? Or was there like a moment where you decide, hey, I want to shift a little bit and start holding some properties?
So originally I bought them to hold because that's what everybody tells you to do. Um, that's what all the people in my circles were doing. They were acquiring all of these investment portfolios of all these properties. So that's what I did originally. Um, the ones that I bought, I had to rebuild them. And so I got a taste of that, like, kind of flipping side of things. And that's by far my favorite. And so now that Zach and I are married and we both have like these real estate backgrounds, he prefers to buy houses and hold them. He would take a long term rental over anything every day. I prefer to flip them. So a lot of times when like a deal presents itself to us, we have this like push and pull on, am I flipping it and selling it, or are we, keeping it and, you know, may the best man win. Um, but I think like you mentioned my eye for things, like that's what's fun for me. Amassing this mass portfolio of properties does not bring me much joy. Like sure it might, it's an asset and you get into this conversation about building wealth, especially for somebody who didn't come from that. That's
Yeah.
exciting. Yet what brings me joy is taking something in disrepair, disheveled, looking its worst, and making it its best again. Like that is what I find the most exciting. And that's what got me into Airbnb properties. So my background at the tourism
Mhm.
bureau, I knew people were here. People were coming in town. Our hotels stay, at max occupancy. I knew people would stay in them. I just wanted to design them and to decorate them and like bring in all this cool stuff and make them a place that people think is beautiful whenever it wasn't when I first got it, And so that's what I find fun, and that's what I would do more of. But there's a balance in everything, right? Like I can't do it all.
How important is it from an investor's perspective to find your niche and stay in it? Um, you're not buying $500,000 houses that you're going in and redoing and putting out there, but you're not going and buying a bunch of Section 8 houses to redo and, try to redo a complete neighborhood.
Right.
So how important is it for y'all's business plan to kind of stay in a niche or stay in y'all's sweet spot?
Well, I think it goes back to the conversation about like trusting your gut on things. My gut's never going to send me to a certain, area of this industry. It goes back to the concept that like just because you can do something doesn't mean that
Mhm.
you should.
Right.
With me specifically, I already do so much, wear so many hats. I have to be careful about what I choose to do. If I'm not excited about it, if I don't feel like this sense of like connection to it, I need to pass on that. I could do it, but I just need to spend my energy somewhere else. And so I do kind of stay within some parameters just based on my own specific interests. It's not necessarily what's most profitable every time. I have real estate investor friends that make a lot more money than I do because they do things differently than
Yeah.
I do. At this stage of the game, I try to focus on what I'm excited about for whatever reason.
Now I know that prior to you guys getting married, Zach was already experienced in the long term rentals. Then the two of y'all decided that y'all were going to do short term rentals at that point. Talk to me about everybody. I say everybody over uh, simplifying it. A lot of people think that the short term rental it's good, easy, fast money to be able to get into, and it's not a lot of work.
Mhm.
Um, Talk about the level of work that has to go into a short-term rental versus a long-term rental.
Yeah, I learned that lesson the hard way. Talking about, learning lessons, that's one that I learned. I gave myself a part-time job that I did not mean to give myself whenever we started these Airbnbs, short-term rentals. Um, as with everything, there's different ways of doing things,
Mhm.
right? So doing things on the level that I do takes a lot of time. Other people, maybe don't put as much time and energy and effort into delivering a certain type of product.
Sure.
Doesn't take them as much time, but I'm very hands-on with our short-term rentals. I do most of the management of them. I hire out the cleaning specifically, but I do all the laundry. I feel like I, can just keep a better handle on it that way. I go behind the cleaners and make sure everything is cleaned up and things. And so for me personally, it takes a whole lot of time that I did not realize I was going to be devoting at first. Um, Sometimes when, I'm riding around with the car full of quilts and sheets and towels, I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Um, but having my tourism and hospitality background, I love doing them. I love the design of them. I love setting up a wonderful place for somebody to stay, the communication with them on that, making sure that they're taken care of. It is something that I enjoy. It just takes a lot of my time. It is not a set it and forget it. Just like getting your real estate license, isn't a get rich quick scheme. All of this takes some work
It
and
takes a
some risk.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But would you agree that the short-term rental, no matter unless you have unbelievable systems, which systems means it's going to cost you money,
Mhm.
because you're going to have to pay somebody to do things. So unless you have unbelievable systems, there's a lot more involvement in a short-term rental than it is for a long-term rental. Correct?
100%. If you're not wanting to put forth the time, long term is for sure the way to go. You have way less day to day management of that than you will a short term. Like, it's a huge gap in the difference in time spent.
But if you enjoy doing some of the things that you do, it may be right up somebody's alley. But
Right.
I hear so many times, well, we're just going to go ahead and buy this property. We'll make an Airbnb. Things are going to be great. We're going to produce, $1,500 a month doing
Mhm.
this. It'll be
Mhm.
extra money for us. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, how much time are you going to have to put into
Right.
that?
And you see a lot of those places come and go because of that. People see some people doing well with them and they're like, oh, I'll do that too. But then they don't realize what all goes into it,
Yeah.
like how thoroughly it has to be cleaned so that you don't get a bad review, so that it doesn't get tanked and nobody books your place. They don't realize some of those things, and you'll kind of see them come on the market and then go off the market. And as with everything, if you're going to do well at it, it takes time and energy and effort. And if you're not willing to put that out there, it
Mhm.
just might not be the route to go.
Yeah. Uh, Anything worth having is going to take some effort to make it happen
Right.
and for it to be good. Um, Give me I have not been in any of your Airbnbs before, but what I know about you is that I would assume that your Airbnbs are going to be kind of themed to where they're going to have their own personality, would probably be a better way of putting it. Give us just a couple examples of the different personalities that you have in your Airbnbs, because to me, that's what truly we so my wife and I, we love staying in Airbnbs. When we travel, we're
Hmm.
looking at that. I really don't like staying in hotels anymore. Once you get the taste of having something that's more private,
Hmm.
that's it's like you're getting an experience at the same time. I don't like
Not
going
just a
to
bed.
I
Yeah.
don't like going to an Airbnb and you walk in and everything is just taupe or beige and
Hmm.
whites and it just is. You got the extra space, but it's the excitement that comes along with the theme and the extras that they put in. Give us a little bit of insight into some of the themes that you have or uh, the the extras that you put into some of your Airbnbs.
Sure. So one reason that I love the Airbnbs is because I get to design them, and they do have their own personality. Because even though this sounds kind of quirky, I feel like every house kind of has its
Mhm.
own personality. And so when I walk in, I can say, oh, this is the vibe of this place. So the first one we did was like this little cottage. It's a 1 bedroom, 1 bath. This is how I got my husband to try it. I'm like, well, this is low risk. Let's just try it with this one. If it goes well, we'll do some others. So he came on board. And it is very much so like bright, cheerful, florals, bright colors, very happy, full of natural light. Like you would come there and just, I don't know, like you're in a cottage in the middle of a field of flowers or something. I don't know. It's just really happy. So then we did one that this house was probably built in the 50s. And so it has like brown siding, and like as soon as I walked up to it, I'm like, this house is retro. And so we actually called that one Retro Retreat, and I went all out with that theme. I painted the backsplash in the kitchen orange, black and white, patterned floors. It had, like a 70s bar, and I mean, the stuff, like the bedding and all is new, but it all fits like that retro vibe, like lots of florals and 70s colors and, you know, um, a very specific vibe to it. And then we have one in the Garden District that's very much so like maybe going to your grandmother's house. Like the couches are green velvet and deep reds and like just a different vibe. Like my cleaners and actually my husband too get mad at me because if we're doing all the linens, nobody knows where they go, and they'll put them in the wrong basket. And I'm like, that's not that. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's clearly not the vibe of that house, you know? So I'm the only one that can sort out where the laundry goes when it's time to return it places because it's all so specifically
Right.
themed in my mind. Which is also why this takes so much of my time because most people don't put that level of energy or care or concern even. Would my guest have the same experience if they were sleeping under a quilt that actually went at another? Yes, absolutely. I just do
But
things on a different
it
level.
matters to you.
Yeah.
All right. So right now we have a successful real estate sales business. We've got a successful Airbnb business. You guys have long-term rentals as well. I'm sure you probably flip a house or two, maybe a year. But then you decide to open up another retail space. I like
Yeah.
you. And in the meantime, if I'm not mistaken, you guys have live out in the middle of nowhere
Mhm.
on several acres of land. You got you got ducks and goats, and I know
Mhm.
got a big, beautiful pond. I see a lot of pictures of
Mhm.
y'all's pond.
Mhm.
So a lot to maintain out there. You've got some beautiful kids that I'm sure you're having to shuffle around. And now you said, it's going to be great. Let's open up another retail store.
Yeah, I did. Here's what happened. It was my birthday. If there's a day of the year where I'm like, I deserve to do what I want to do, it's that day. It's coming up and it's a big one. You said I was young, but anyway. Um, it's my birthday. I've got my hair cut. I walk across the street to this new shop on Antique Alley. I'm like, I haven't been in. Let me go look. And I see a booth space open. My wheels start turning. I'm like, I could just do this little small booth and it'll like put me back in touch with that retail fashion side that I kind of miss, but yet be a low commitment. So I start to talk to the shop owner. She's like, well, I actually have one that's like double that size coming up down, over here if you want to look at it. And I'm like, oh gosh, should I do it? Should I do it? Well, then she calls and she's like, well, actually, I own another shop up the street and the whole back corner is coming open. And so I go and look at it, and I go from this like the size of this table we're at, $100 something, I don't even remember, plan, to I'm now renting the whole back corner of this shop. I'm calling what I'm doing like a micro store. I named it the Remix because it is a remix, a remake of something old done in a new way. And it's going so well and it's so exciting. I'm having the best time. It's the best of both worlds for me because I get to do that business again. But because it's inside their, shop, they manage it and I don't have to be there all day, every day. I don't manage the staffing, which was one of the biggest headaches at my old
Mm.
store. So I'm getting to do the parts that I love, be back in it while still doing my like real job because I have to be careful to not let my side quests interfere with, my actual bread and butter real job. And it's been so good. It's gone so well. So I'm getting such great feedback from people who are happy I'm back in the industry. old clients and customers of mine and that sort of thing. And
So tell us what you actually have in your shop. What is so something old made new again, but give us a little more specific.
yeah, so if people shopped with me before at Salt and Pepper, it's very similar to that. So I have like clothing, new clothing, that I go out and source and provide, and it's all, really good prices, especially in today's economy. It's things that are different, things that I would wear personally, things that are, like I said, are well priced that, hopefully you're not going to just find anywhere. And then I also have the like vintage furniture and home decor and, things that I source there too. So it's very similar to my old store, um, just a little different based on who I am today versus who I was back then. We have gift stuff, if you need, like we have like notebooks and hand towels with funny sayings on them and things like that you can pick up for a quick gift for somebody.
What's the building it's in, so if people want to be able to go visit it?
Yes, it's inside Shops on the Alley, 215 Trenton Street on Antique Alley. It was my favorite store down there, and so I'm happy to get to be inside of it. I would shop there personally even before I was there. But if you're coming in from Trenton Street, I'm the back right corner.
Back right corner.
Mm-hmm.
What are the odds that this is going to grow back into a standalone place?
If I can't tell you how many times in a day I'm asked, will I please just open another full store? Because, I am limited in space.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have a huge spot, but it's not the same as a full store. And I don't know the answer to that. I have learned to never say never. So I won't say never. Right now, this is working well for me. I'm not going to say that I won't do it or that I wouldn't, love to do it at some point. But who knows?
But finding the people to make something like that work is probably the most challenging piece.
It is. It is. And that was, when I sold my first store, I found this like freedom that I had been missing in not having to be, at the store 6 to 7 days a week, 10 to 6 every day. And if I wasn't there, I had to make sure someone else who was capable of delivering the experience I wanted for customers could be there in my place. And that was just the hardest thing, to manage all of that. And I was happy to have the flexibility of my schedule. I mean, not that real estate really gives you that, but it kind of does. And so if I were to open another store, that would be the biggest sacrifice that I would be making. And I'm not sure about that at this time.
You just alluded to it. There's a lot of people or misconception about, selling real estate, that you have all this free time on your hands, that you can make your own schedule, you can come and go. And although that is true, you will be broke really quickly if that's how you run it. I only sell real estate. I don't have the Airbnbs. I don't have the extra, the retail space going on, and the other things that you get involved in. How do you manage it all? I mean, how do you? Because I know the volume that you've done in the past. I don't know what you're currently doing today, but I know what busy is like, and I know that you've got help. People that kind of help do transaction stuff, but there's only so much that they can do to where it requires you to actually be involved and to juggle all of those things when time gets busy. How do you do it without getting overwhelmed? And or when you get overwhelmed, how do you reel it back in so that you just don't start exploding?
So probably one of the main questions I get from people is how I do it all. And the first answer to that is that I don't do it all, right? Like I don't do some things. I was on the way here and I was like, gosh, this is on video. I really should have done something with my nails. My nails always look terrible. While I would love to go get my nails done weekly, I'm jealous of all the people who always have pretty nails. I don't. My closet at home is a mess and I don't know when it's going to get cleaned up. I don't cook supper every night. I do a lot, And in doing a lot, I have to say no to a lot. Like, there's a
Mm.
lot of things that I just don't do, and I can't focus on those things. Also, like, the older I get, the more I have learned what my limits are. Used to, I would blow right past them, and then I would hate everything and everybody, and it would take me 2 weeks to recover. Now I'm better at saying, "Oh, you're getting tired. Take a day off and stay home
Mm.
in your pajamas." Um, or I feel like this is important, but I don't think it's actually important to me. I think this is important to me because I'm worried about what other people think. I've got to let that go. I'm getting better at that sort of thing. I also do a whole lot of like careful time management. And I don't say that like I have a color blocked calendar because that will send me. I'm not a color blocked calendar kind of girl. I think you kind of are. I think we've had some conversations about this. I'm not going to do that. If my schedule is time blocked, I'm about to leave. Like, I can't do that. I do, however, make the most of my time. I don't do time wasting things. I teach actually a class about some time management stuff. And just as an example that comes to mind is like this concept of touch it once, that like when you get the mail out, sort it right then, do the stuff you got to pay later, throw the trash away rather than piling it up and making that a task for later. It takes 60 seconds right now. It'll take 15 minutes later. So I'm just careful about how I spend my time in those types of ways.
I need to learn that touch it once. If you see my desk, I develop piles on my desk on either side, and it's because I'm like, I think I'm gonna need this on, put it down here and I'll get to it later. And it's when I don't get to it, you find yourself a couple months down the road, the pile's gotten so big, I've got to process it.
Yeah.
And you spend, 30 minutes, an hour going through all that stuff.
Right.
So,
And it's like this nagging
Yeah.
thing that like wears you down that you haven't done yet. I've got to sort through that.
touch it once is my
Yeah.
takeaway
Yeah.
so far.
Good.
Thank you for that.
It's the same thing with like laundry. Like, I'm going to step on some toes with this, but like, you probably don't do laundry, but that was sexist, wasn't it? I'm sorry.
It's accurate.
Sorry. I just have a feeling. But anyway, when you take it out of the dryer, rather like fold it and put it away. It takes just a few minutes to do that right then.
Instead of
Whereas if
piling it
you
up on the
throw it
couch.
on the couch,
Yeah.
now you've done that a few times and you've created a monster.
Yeah.
And I don't have the capacity to deal with monsters. Like, I got to do it right now. But ultimately, like, you have to know when to stop. You've got to know when to say no. I'm learning and relearning this every day. But as I've gotten older, I'm better about seeing the signs of I need to sleep, I need to eat better, I need to go touch some grass, spend some time outside, to kind of keep my head in the right space. But I'm just really careful with this conversation with people because on the outside, it does look like I do it all. And I do a lot. But if you come over to my house at any given point, it's probably going to be a mess. My car is a mess. I scarfed down a cheeseburger in your parking lot to be able to be here on time today. I should have meal planned, I should have had some grilled chicken. Like, some things go to the wayside so that I can do all the things that I do.
You mentioned about there's a class you teach. How important is it to you to reinvest into other people? And were you invested in coming up through this?
When you say this, what do you mean?
Did you have other people that tried to mentor you through various stages of your career? And are you trying to give back when you can to others?
Yeah, of course.
You can say whatever you want to.
Well, I mean, would somebody say no? No, I'm not investing in nobody. No.
I've talked to some people like, I'm stingy with my time. I'm not giving back.
Oh, I guess I could see that. Okay.
Well, the business that we're in, a lot of times there are people just kind of like this with it. And although I'm a proponent that there's no original ideas when it comes to doing what you and I do. It's just
anything.
It's a version of something that's already been done or
Right.
whatever the case may be. But I find that it's very rewarding not only to pour back into other people, but I mean, I wish I'd have been poured into a little bit when I got started.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, I learned somewhere in real estate this idea of like a scarcity mindset or a mindset of abundance.
Hmm.
And if you try to keep everything to yourself, you're limiting what can come to you.
Yeah.
And I just believe, I mean, you talked about us like, are we competitors or not competitors? We're both in the same industry. But I think there's enough to go around, right?
Yeah.
And I think that when we approach life in that way, we just attract more good things to us. And so I teach like classes in our office. I teach classes at, other businesses in town. And I mean, I teach a negotiation class in our own office where I teach people who could be competing against me how to negotiate. Like,
Right.
and I'm like, you can't use this against me, but you can use it against everybody else.
Sure.
Um, I I've learned so much from people, both like face to face people that I know in real life and podcasts or trainings I've done online or whatever to build me into who I am today. And I think it's my obligation to pass some of that on. I'm not saying that, I have all the answers or that I know the path to take. But if something I say can trigger something for someone, then I feel like I'm doing my part. Because that's how I've gotten to where I am is just picking up things from people here and there over the years and applying it to my own life in some way.
So you never stop learning.
No.
I mean, I think that's a key point I'd like people to take away is that at the moment you think you got it all figured out, I think you're lying to yourself. And the moment you stop learning, you're going to get left behind. And it doesn't mean that we have to go take college courses from here to eternity, but if you're passionate about something, try to be the best that you can be at it. The thing I get frustrated in the industry that we're in is that, and I know I'm going to say this and it's going to step on some toes, the part-time agent that's out there, the person that's part-time and they're trying really hard to make it full time. I'm with you 100%. But the part-time agent that just wants to be part-time and treat it as it's part-time with their education and the experience that they bring to the table, I mean, it really irks me because the consumer is getting cheated. They're getting cheated out of an awful lot when it comes to that. So never stop learning.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you measure success?
The answer to that question has changed, right? I think that I've defined that in a lot of different ways over the course of my life.
Give me an early example of how you measure success and then what that looks like today, because I think that that's kind of what I wanted to get to is that the way it's actually viewed. But I'd like to hear your example of kind of early in your career versus right now, how you measure success.
So in the beginning, and this is because of my background, like how I was raised, but to me, success was make a lot of money. Specifically in my head, it was $100,000. If you made $100,000, you were successful. Being a woman, I needed a husband and some children and like a nice house and a job that I wore a business suit to. I quickly learned, right, that's not true. I had a job I had to wear a business suit and pantyhose to, and I hated it. I did not like someone telling me how I had to dress every day. Then I made $100,000, and of course, it didn't fill you up the way you think that it will, As a matter of fact, I have like this really bad experience of calling my mom to tell her about that. Of course, we don't talk about money, right? Like you shouldn't talk about money is what I was taught. But this was a big deal. This was a goal that I set and I worked incredibly hard to get to. And that conversation just did not go well. And I'll never forget it. Anyway, like.
But was it a conversation you needed to hear?
No, I think it was a conversation that opened my eyes about our relationship.
Okay.
I was so proud of because I worked for that. That wasn't given to me. I was new in real estate. I'm up against people who've been doing it for years, and like I'm hustling for that money, and I made it. And it's not something you would ever like put out there into the world, but I
Sure.
thought surely you call your mom.
Yeah.
And rather than like celebrating that, she was just like, "Oh, okay, well that's good. Well, don't go getting a big head about that, And like it just was like this high just like tanked, and
Mhm.
like I learned in that moment like these aren't my people to celebrate wins with. Anyway, and then, I got married. That didn't go the way that I meant for it to. And so I just had to regroup on what success was. Nowadays, and I don't know that this is like even the right answer right now, this is probably still evolving. But to me, right now, success is having control of my time, how I spend my time, who I spend my time with. And lately, I've been coming back to this conversation. I'm sure you remember Christy Wheeler. She was a important mentor of mine. Obviously, add to the tragedy how he lost her. But I remember her saying one time that she never wanted money to dictate the decisions that she made. And I'll never forget that. And for some reason here lately, that's just been circling through my head over and over again, that this idea of money not controlling what we do and why we do it and when and that sort of stuff. And so right now, success is somewhere around in that. And who knows how I'll define it as time continues to pass.
But it sounds to me like money is necessary to achieve some of the things in life that we need to achieve. But what I hear you saying is that the value of your time and what you get to do with that time is more important. That's where your focus is.
Yes, because it's passing so quickly.
Mm.
And I think some of that realization has came with having children.
Yeah, that'll
and
happen.
seeing how quickly they're growing and how, soon they'll be gone. And I just feel this compulsion to make the most of it while I have it. Like I can feel it sifting through my fingers, but I'm just trying to grab onto as much of it as I can, while also having 4 jobs and stuff to do.
As we wrap up, if you could leave one piece of advice to someone young that is trying to figure out what they want to do with life, what's if you could just leave them with one thing, what's that one thing that you would? Because I think it's our job. We tend to spend more time on the job than we do with our family face to face, at least during the week. And that's a big part of our life, but it shouldn't be our life. I feel like we're kind of taught early on that's, you are what you do. And I've evolved to think that's just what I do. That's not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But what piece of advice would you leave with someone young that's trying to figure that piece out? And they're either unsure or they're scared to take that risk.
I think the short answer would be to just do it. Like whatever it is that's you keep thinking about at night, just do it. We are more likely to regret the things we did not do than we are the things that we did, which is how I have a store again right now. You're more likely at the end of your life to regret not taking a chance on something than you are to have done that thing that you learned a hard lesson over. And so I think that if I were giving someone advice, if there's something on your mind that you want to do, whether that's go to a specific school, change careers, try a career, open a store, whatever it is, just do it. Just do it and see what happens. If you think about what is the worst thing that could happen, usually the worst thing isn't that bad.
Yeah.
Maybe you lose some money, maybe you're embarrassed for a minute, but you're probably not going to end up on the streets, so the worst thing is probably not that bad if you really stop and think about it. And a lot of times it's wrapped up in other people's opinions of you, which you got to let those go anyway.
Yeah. Making a mistake early on is a lot easier to overcome than when you're mid-30s and you have responsibilities or even older than that. So I appreciate you saying basically take some risk.
Right.
It's not that bad, and don't have any regrets. I wish I could say I don't think anybody can say that they've lived life with no regrets.
Oh no, I have a ton.
I as well. But take some risk, and seeing the risk that you've taken. You're a great professional in our community. You can tell that you love our community. And I think a lot of both you and Zach. And I really appreciate you giving me this time today to come in because I know how valuable your time is. So thanks again for coming in and talking to us today.
Yeah, I feel like we talked in circles, but hopefully somebody got something out of it somewhere.
Thanks again.
Thank you.